continuing. So like I said, we are seeking good wives, and like I said, Corinthians 11 and 3. You know, a woman, a virtuous woman, would understand that. It's really the job of a man to provide for his family. You know, that's how even in Jake's this wicked selling, doing whatever they do in the world, on that left hand side, if they selling drugs, robbing, whatever, you got Jake that is instilled in their body, they still take care of it. I know Jake's that was doing that. They might be breaking Esau's laws, but they still took care of their family, you know what I'm saying? Because it's now to show you how Esau really set this up, because Esau, put it in, it's Jake that can't even get employment, you know what I mean? They make it hard for Jake to survive, you know, with what you got all these felonies, you know what I mean? Like, to show you they purposely do it, because they tell you that America, you in the land of the free and things aren't held against you, but then you got people that go through time and they can't get no job. You know what I'm saying? It's just, this place is full of shit when you take the time to really sit and meditate on it. Let me get First Peter, because at the end of the day, we want good women. You know what I mean? We want a woman that understands, the order. Because and then it all boils down to the man being order. But order, everything it has an order. You know what I mean? If you don't have order, what do you have? You have chaos. Like how the chaos gonna be. I'm trying to think of a time, like for instance, when the 9/11, I worked at this parking lot. You know what I'm saying? And although it was orderly how they got them out of there, I don't know if you've ever seen any situations. Well, for instance, like shit with 9/11, same example. That had to be chaotic. You know how I knew it had to be chaotic? Because they couldn't control that. It's a building. You had some people get out, but you had people jumping off the building. It was chaotic. Like I said, that's why so many people got hurt and injured and shit like that. But you ain't seen no real chaos yet. Real talk. I can't wait till the Most High send, this pain, death, destruction, and chaos. I mean, I know Amos 5:18 says, "Woe unto them that desire the day of the Lord," but I don't desire this shit. This shit suck. This is First Peter 3:6. Even as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters ye are, as long as ye do well and are not afraid with any amazement. Point was, even as Sarah obeyed. And that's what we looking for. That's a good woman. A woman that's going to obey. Just like we supposed to obey the Most High, our women, and that's the order. Because if you right with the Most High, it's going to be right with the household. You know what I mean? It often makes me wonder, you know what I mean? Like I said, because I try to fast. I try to do, the lawful things. I try not to be a nigga, you know what I mean? Yeah. But at the same time, I still, like, one of my biggest stumbling block was that woman. But I also think that's part of a test for me, my personal testimony. I ain't even bring out the article. Let me bring out that article, because like I said, so I brought out a wicked woman and what kind of woman we want. And I brought out the fact that the purpose of me doing this whole video is because of the fact Elder Malcolm and how he said with the account of the slave that was saying how the woman not too long into their slavery was already, basically doing what they needed to do to survive, which I can understand, but I can't though. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, like that's just the nature of some women. And trust me, I keep on reiterating. I said some, not all. That's like saying all niggas don't take care of their kids. And I've heard women say that. You know what I mean? I would never just label all of them. But we gonna say it's a group of people out there. You know what I mean? You got people gonna be offended just by, and I'm saying not all. You know what I mean? Wanna know why? Because the truth hurt. But this was an article I found by the New York Times. It says, was interracial love possible in the days of slavery? Descendants of one couple think so. Now look at these Edomites. And I'm gonna read a little bit of the article just to prove the point that what Elder Malcolm was saying in that video. Now I can't, but like I said, through the Spirit, I'm gonna try and find that actual slave's account. Because like I said, I know the power of that. Like I said, them books I came across, I can't think of the name of the damn book. I had to ask one of the brothers in the camp, but it made it more powerful because you literally, and the way that they wrote it, they literally, like, they didn't try and clean it up, their speech or anything. They wrote it like ebonics and all. You know what I mean? They was shit. You had counts where they was talking about slavery had been over with for like a year or two, and they still was wherever the fuck they was at. They was still making it seem like it was slavery. That's just like we brought out that camp. How I forgot what the name of the ship, the last slave ship. Slavery had been abolished in the whole world, so it was illegal. But you had places like they still was doing it in America, but you motherfuckers trusting this shit. Salakia. Let me get into this. It says Paula Wright, a seventh-generation descendant of an interracial couple, has documented over 500 images that chronicle her family's history. And the reason why I'm bringing this particular article out is because I'm sure when I first looked over it, they said that she married a Confederate soldier. I ain't gonna break that one down to you. Go look at who the Confederacy was. By Adel Hassan, October 21st, 2018. He was buried in a white cemetery. Wow, it's just starting off just like that. He was buried in a white cemetery. She was buried in a black cemetery. Their marriage was unheard of at the time. Both William Ramey and his wife Kitty Simmons were born and raised in Edgefield, South Carolina, or Bloody Edgefield, a town known for its grisly murder rate in the antebellum South. Go look that up, antebellum. Their relationship defied convention, and yet it survived war and bitter family resentment. Mr. Ramey, born in 1840, came from a prominent white family. Miss Simpkins was born a slave. Born a slave. Slovakia. Born a slave in 1845. Most likely on a property called Edgewood, owned by Francis Pickens, who would become a Confederate governor. Now it's going into Mrs. Wright's great-great-great-grandmother. Kitty Simmons was a black woman. So this is how you got the lady Mrs. Wright, because her great-great-great-grandmother was the lady Kitty Simmons. The love affair could have been lost if not for Paula Wright, a seventh-generation descendant of the couple who inherited vintage photographs that inspired her to document 8 generations of her family dating to 1805. See, but that's just like the one elder South Carolina. Like he was talking about how they had this little documentary where you had some Judah. Well, I can't say it was Judah. He said it was Jake, and they was helping this Edomite couple into the car. And he was like, nah. He was like, in the world, I don't even think he said there's been times he helped, Edomites and all that shit. He said, but the way that they're glamorizing is basically to show how coonish these niggas is and how, in subjection for real. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, they trying to make this more like a love story. Like, the fuck? Like, you don't know if he took the pussy or what. My thing is this. She joined on to him because I know, like they said, it's generations of this. Acceptable union. Mr. Pickens opposed the mixing of races, but he did not send Mrs. Simmons away. On April 8th, 1864, she gave birth to a daughter, and that same month, Mr. Ramey returned to Edgefield for a 3-month furlong. I like to think that he had came back to see his baby. Back on the battlefield, Mr. Ramey was eventually captured and held prisoner until the war was over. When he returned to Edgefield, he continued to have a relationship with Miss Simmons, who had remained on the plantation, along with many former slaves. Although she was free, she had nothing of material value. There's loot and there's lawlessness. It's a very scary time, so she stayed at the only place she really knew. They chose to remain committed to each other, Mrs. Wright said, but they walked a very fine line when it came to their marriage, and they worked to keep it under wraps and at times to appear separate. Got one for you, protecting their interracial legacy. In order to protect his family, you hear this shit? He said, in order to protect his family. He said, in order to protect his family, Mr. Ramey listed himself in 19th century census records as a head of household and his wife and their children as his servants. But that changed when he became ill in 1910. He listed Mrs. Simmons in the census. Oh, yeah, that's deep. But my point of bringing it up was because he listed her and the children as his servants. So they were still slaves. But they say he changed it before he died. So, and that's the end of the article too. Ain't about a bit. So my point being, she married into that thing. Like I said, he was a Confederate soldier. You go look that up on your own. I'm not going to. Because at the end of the day, you're going to have to do some work in this truth. It ain't just going to, everything will be given to you. Like I like to bring out that scripture at the end of the day. It said, a king searcheth out a thing. What am I looking for? I'm going to bring out the article on Sally Hemings and Thomas Jefferson. How Sally Hemings and other enslaved people secured precious pockets of freedom. In navigating lives of privation and brutality, enslaved people naggled often daily for liberty, small and large. It says a replica of a small room at the New Life of Sally Hemings exhibit at Monticello. Hemings believed to live in these quarters was Thomas Jefferson's concubine and bore him several children. By initially refusing to return from Paris with him to Virginia, she was able to negotiate the future freedom of her unborn children. In the power relationship between America's enslaved people and their enslavers, it's widely assumed that the planter class held all the cards. After all, they were the dominant group who frequently enforced their will with whips, chains, and dogs. It's like it whips, chains, dogs, and worse. Most enslaved people were considered little more than legal property. Business investments whose human needs and family relationships were relevant only as far as they affected productivity and the bottom line of the people they served. So when faced with the question of whether enslaved people could negotiate any aspect of their lives with their enslavers, the prospect seems hard to imagine. With power stacked so overwhelmingly against them, what could the enslaved negotiate for, and with what leverage? How could an enslaver concede even small favor to one while while maintaining fear and order among the broader ranks? The reality was complicated, and navigating the lives of the case of Sally Hemings and America's third president, Thomas Jefferson, touched on recently in a new exhibit at Jefferson's home, Monticello, shines a light on this little discussed aspect of America's peculiar institution. Hemings' story is an extraordinary one, since it chronicles not only a 16-year-old enslaved girl who had the life experience and presence of mind to negotiate for her unborn children's future freedom, but a founding father whose complex moral code moved him to honor his agreement. And then they still gonna try to make this devil sound like you gonna look up Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson he didn't like niggas like that. But that's just the hypocrisy of the Edomite. You know what I'm saying? It's like, real talk. That's crazy. They say, oh yeah, he's still a good guy because he agreed to the arrangement. He ain't do like what they normally do and just say fuck you. I don't even know if I would have read this anymore. It did, and a lot of the articles word like this. They're worded like this. Sally Hemings knew the value of women's bodies. Hemings was Jefferson's concubine, a woman who bore him 6 children, of whom 4 survived. On June 16, 2008, the Thomas Jefferson Foundation opened new spaces on the southern wing of Jefferson's Monticello. And that's enough. My point of bringing this out was to show you that like I said, your president that was considered, He was a slave master. He owned slaves. He just so happened to be a politician too. He made children with, Jake. You know what I'm saying? And best believe she was joined on to him. Now, I don't know. I mean, why she chose to leave or whatever, and why he granted it. Maybe she put it on him. I don't. I ultimately, it was the spirit of the Most High, though, for real. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, because everything is subject to the Most High. It says in, I believe, the book of Job that he still have the instructions while you sleep. Your instructions. So you think you doing something, but that ain't your will. That's the Most High will. You know what I mean? Like, real talk. And that's the thing about being in this truth. You come to find out and figure out, how much you really ain't in control. Trust and believe. I've seen brothers get jobs. Me, myself, I had a job and then something happened. I lost a job. I'm thinking I'm about to get my shit. Because I called myself. I said, fuck that. I'm going to give me a job. So when they shut this government shit down again, I ain't being homeless again. Guess what? I ain't working. So no matter what you got in mind in this story, that shit don't matter. I got one more article, and then I'm going to end it with a few scriptures. I'm trying to find this. That ain't it. It's about that wench. Is this it, I think? I think it's because... Yeah, this is it. It says, I think this is written by a Jake woman. It said, history, always alluring. The hidden sexual history of black women and white men. Yeah, now, I can't pronounce that. Crystalline Karazine. Crystalline Karazin. Along the line of Q Bono, one might want to ask the question, who benefits from calling black women who date interracially bed wenches? Seriously, answer it. We're told that white men of centuries gone by collectively held disgust and contempt of black women, but is that true? Totally true. I have to admit, some of the hidden histories of these women is news for me too, but lucky for you, we have some of the most brilliant and educated black women on the planet, so-called black women on the planet here. And the name of this is, I guess this is a blog, it's Beyond Black and White. And here's what a few commenters uncovered from G. Joe. I'm probably not pronouncing that right. Gijou. During the period of Reconstruction, the pedestal myth, as well as the mammy myth, truly took root. In order to keep black women in a place, as well as making us less desirable to white men. And that's what I wanted to bring out, because you see, they think, looking at it, it's like, why would you want to be attracted to your oppressor? Like I brought out, like I said in the book of, I believe it's Ecclesiastes, Salaki, I forget where exactly it's at. It says, surely oppression maketh the wise man mad. If you being oppressed, why would you want to be deemed attractive to the motherfucker that you didn't find that attractive? You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever. Yeah. Of servitude. That's why this is a really fucked up place. When you take the time to think about it, that's how you know this truly is Babylon. This is a place where you had all these different groups of people that came and basically integrated and had sex and, like, of servitude we were made into sexist beasts of burden, overweight, loud, poorly groomed, undereducated, as every other you can think of, everything the pedestal white woman wasn't. But the truth is another matter entirely. Let me state a few of history's very hidden examples. Now, like I said, this is around the time of slavery. Quadroon balls were some of the most fashionable, desirable social activities of the social season. There were also several other levels of balls and parties, all for the purpose of young free women of color making the acquaintance of a young white man. These events were of the highest moral order. The mother, aunt, or any other maternal figure would attend with the young woman. The young men were usually escorted by their fathers, uncles, or parental figure. When a young man saw a young woman he found attractive, usually the escorting parties would arrange a proper introduction. If sparks didn't fly, that was okay. There were other young women. There were other young men. But do you get the understanding of this? This wasn't for them to like go on a date. This wasn't like Cinderella shit. They were basically their mistresses, and that goes into, like I said, the book, the Wench. Wench is by whatever this name is, but it's a fictional story based on some true events. It was a place in Ohio where you had the slave master used to take his mistress. You know what I mean? And they said it had such an unsavory name because you had the other Edomites that got offended by it, that they ended up just basically slowly like disintegrating. Plaquage. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the New Orleans 19th century custom of plaquage. Plaquage, which means placement, was an agreed upon common law marriage arrangement between young free women of color, and no, not all of these young women could pass black, and a young white man of usually great wealth. But see, it didn't matter about like if you was fair skinned, because if they deemed you like, where you think that law came from? I think it's in one of these articles. It was saying like if you had any drop of it, you was considered a nigga. That's, man, this shit. A young white man of usually great wealth, because they were the only man who could afford such an arrangement. With these young men legally married, when these young men legally married a white woman, these marriages were usually also arranged. So you get what they're saying. So they were married to the Edomite woman, but they also had their side chick. And she could, be very fair skinned, but she still was considered a nigga. You know what I mean? But the plaquage arrangement, being that they were not legally binding, required a love, compatibility, sexual attraction. Agreed upon arrangement usually included housing, household staffing, usually enslaved relatives of the young woman, financial assistance, care, and education of all children. Now, mind you, this is totally different from when you were just getting raped. These women had a conscious decision to do this. I was reading a Stephen King book, The Dark Tower, and they were speaking on this. So, like, they portrayed her. See, Stephen King is a lot of these authors they know more than what they let on, just like a lot of these entertainers do. You got to remember, when you got money, you got access to shit that you don't got. That's why, like I said, like, I remember, because I'm like the oldest brother in the camp, in my camp, and they always be talking about music, or sometimes they throw little motivational videos of music in there. So one day I was sipping some Yaya, and I'm feeling good. I'm merry. How about that? And I started putting music in there. So I put in there that what's that with CeeLo? Who's that creeping up through my window? I can't think of the damn name of their group at that time, but I didn't even realize that they was talking about the New World Order back then. You know what I'm saying? You know how old that video is? And it wasn't just CeeLo, it was like the whole group. The whole song is basically about that. And now you look at CeeLo, and CeeLo looking like a fucking fag. You know what I'm saying? Like, sold out. So you got to be careful with this thing. Like, but my point being, at one point, yeah, you was getting raped and whatnot, you know what I mean? That's a judgment in itself, you know what I mean? That's a horrible thing, you know what I mean? When you forced to do something, like I said, I was kicked out of the hospital at a time where my daughter, we didn't know if she was going to live or die. This is how goofy the bitch is I had kids with. I flipped, you know what I mean? I tried to beat that bitch up, you know what I'm saying? So, that's why you got to move with wisdom in this thing, you know what I mean? And it was my fault, you know what I mean? I should have, but see, I know if I was dead sober, it probably been worse. But if I would have been drinking, it probably would have, I don't know, it probably wouldn't even have worked out like that. I don't know if you've ever been in a position to lose a child, you know what I mean? But my point being, so, like I said, this was agreed upon, you know what I mean? Like, so the woman had a conscious effort to do this. That's them joining hand in hand. These young men understood they didn't have sexual relations with these young men understood they didn't have sexual relations with these young women until all was finalized. And like I said, in that book, The Dark Tower, I forgot which one, it actually was an arrangement like that. Like it was a female. She was gonna be like he was married. The mayor was married to his wife, but he was gonna financially. He was gonna do whatever, like take care of her and pay her and all that. But she had to fuck him, and the aunt wanted her to do it. She really didn't want him to do it. And the main character of the book, his name was Roland. She fell in love with him though. You know what I mean? And it's deep. So my point being, see how now that's a fantasy book, that's a fictional book, but he brought in something that actually happened in history. He didn't call it what they're calling placage or whatever, but these relationships usually lasted a lifetime, and in some cases, these women did gain an inheritance after her lover's death, but this was rare. I ain't about to read the rest of this. It says dueling over women. She goes into that. Now, I never knew that. She goes into history. She said that, a lot of the duels were actually fought over because two men over a Jake woman. She said, did you know all dudes were fought over women of color? Did you know most of the white women were very jealous of this? Then she went into this Tygon law, and that's about head wraps. You know what I mean? Like I said, Jake, I know from the world, he is from down south, Louisiana, and you had a lot of fair skin, like you got that Creole. You know what I mean? So, my point being, that don't sound like what we was catching hell. You had people going through like shit, like we was getting lynched and shit. Don't get me wrong, women was getting fucked up too. But, what I'm saying? I just proved the point right there. You know what I mean? Like, so I got two more scriptures. And then I'm going to end this because at the end of the day, I went into, a wicked woman and, how the mentality and whatnot, mentality of a lot of our women is, wicked. They join hand in hand, with this devil because they got a vested interest in this place. You know what I'm saying? Like Apostle Hart brought out about the women of West Point. You know what I mean? You think when the shit go bad, you don't think them women gonna try and pick up arms? And like I said, the sad part was they was all Jake women. We went into what a good woman would be, but instead of trying to chase after any woman, you should be chasing after wisdom. Wisdom is the woman that you will want to seek out. You know what I mean? Probably just get one scripture. I'm getting sleepy now. I got things to do in the morning too. It's more than us. It's like 6 o'clock. Where am I? Proverbs 2:16. That ain't it. It was worded different. Them different Bible translations will really mess you up sometimes. Slovakia. Yeah, I'm gonna get one scripture. And if you desire wisdom, that's not corruptible. You get what I'm saying? So I'm gonna end it on this scripture. This is the Book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 6. I'm gonna start at verse 19. And incorruption maketh us near Yahweh, Salakia. And incorruption maketh us near unto Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. Verse 20. Therefore the desire of wisdom bringeth to a kingdom. Verse 21. If your delight be then in thrones and scepters, O ye kings of the people, honor wisdom, that ye may reign forevermore. Verse 22. As for wisdom, what she is and how she came up, I will tell you, and I will not hide mysteries from you, but will seek her out from the beginning of her nativity and bring the knowledge of her into a light, and will not pass over the truth. At the end of the day, those that seek to rule, and that's what, the brothers that's sincere in this truth are into. They seeking to rule. They want rulership. They don't want women. You know what I mean? Like, women are a beautiful thing. Like I said, the glory of a man is a good woman. But at the same time, you got men that's in this thing seeking 20 women now. If you got the energy and spirit for that, and you ain't going off. Because like I said, if they willing to dwell with you and you can handle that and maintain that, But every man ain't got no spirit for no shit like that. You got some men that, like I said, can't even deal with one. You know what I mean? Like, so how you gonna deal with 10 or 15? You know what kind of man you gotta be? Especially in this society, you know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. I remember one time I was on the bus. It was right around the time I was going through. No, actually, it wasn't. I was still in the world, I think, at the time, and I was intoxicated. I might have been high off some shit. I'll never forget though. It was late as fuck. I was on the bus. It was around the time they built that casino here, because when they built the casino in our city, a lot of people from other cities and states, it's money. So you got people that venture out. You know what I mean? This is like when it get cold in my city, people leave and go to warmer climates to live, and then they come back. But anyhow, I was on the bus, and this dude got on the bus, and you could just tell his spirit was totally different. I don't know if he was talking to himself or how I found out, but he said something. I think I found out because it was two dyke chicks on the bus, and I think that's where I heard it when he was trying to knock him off. And long story short, he was from like Chicago, and what he did was you had the bull dagger, the real want to be masculine one, and you had the like the feminine one, and he basically blew out on the bull dagger one to the point where she turned into a girl, and it was the most funniest shit. I'll never forget, because I went back and told my brother, you know what I mean, and he just looked at me, you know what I mean. I think we talked about it a little bit, but at the end of the day, it was funny. He was like, "Yeah, that's some cold shit." I was in the world at one point, because it was amazing to me, because like I said, this bitch really thought she was. The way he did it was so fucking hilarious, because basically, when I'm getting off the bus, I remember he had one of them in one arm and one in the other arm. Yeah. So my point being is, you don't want to be searching after no woman. You want wisdom. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, the wisdom is going to keep you stable. What it says in the scriptures, the wisdom and knowledge is going to be the stability of our times. A woman is not at the end of the day. Like I said, when this shit go bad, you going to have to be stability for her. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day. Like, well, fuck. I cussed that damn demon out, and she didn't have a word to say. She seemed like a little kid. And the other time, this motherfucker would have got 2 words to say. I say, don't you really? And the crazy part is to show you how you got demons on you. You know some shit. You ain't just the average broad that's up there and just fucking stuck on nails and doing your hair. You know how the economy runs to a certain extent. You see the shit fucked up. You sit up there, but you done did this dumbass shit. You done moved to a city where they gonna just eat each other down that bitch. But with that, I'm gonna end the lesson, because, like I said, I brought up my point. You know what I mean? We shouldn't be in search of a woman on this side. You know what I mean? And, if you got one, and you know what I mean, and she, pleased to dwell with you, and she a helper and not a hindrance. That's a beautiful thing. I'll never judge and knock a brother that got that. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you never know. You know what I mean? Because shit, get real when shit get real fucked up. So like I said, if there's any woman you should be seeking, it should be this wisdom. And with that, I'm going to end the lesson. I'm going to give all praise, honor, and glory. Call Allah, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Arachakadash Wakatham. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth. Peace and salutations to occupying around the 4 corners of the earth, pushing the truth with faith and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so. Shalom. To the Akwaf and the Akim out there listening and learning, Lord willing, this was an edifying video. Shalom to the confusion of faith. Brethren, join unto our ranks. And with that, I want to say shalom, shalom, and a bar the ball.